welcome to the Mild Opinion Podcast. I'm Logan.
I'm Luke.
And a little while back, we done the 2026 movies that are coming out, and, upcoming projects that we're excited about and all that. And that was kind of the beginning of the year stuff. So now that we're about halfway point, we're going to dive into what's coming out later this year, stuff that we've got more information on now, new trailers, all that. Just the end of the year movies that are yet to come out.
Yeah. So, so far, I feel like this year has been really good for movies. I don't think I've gone... There's only been one time I've gone to the movie theater and been thoroughly disappointed, which was The Mandalorian and Grogu. But so far this year, there's been, the movie Obsession came out. I gotta say, that's probably the one that took me the most by storm, and it... Mm-hmm. That blew everybody out of the water, I feel like. But, I would say we've got some that I feel like kind of flew under the radar for us. First time we did a 2026 movie, kind of just sharing what we think it's going to be like. So we'll start with one that we've talked about before and we've speculated on a lot, but now we know a little bit more about it, and it's a little bit ways out, but just coming out at the end of this month is Spider-Man Brand New Day. Mm-hmm. And I feel like this is probably currently the most anticipated superhero movie.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's just so many what ifs, especially after the big, basically, reset that happened in the last Spider-Man movie. So it's like, where do you go from here? How do you navigate it? Them matching up, shots from the trailers with old comic book panels and stuff has really inspired confidence that's going to be a very comic booky movie, which they have been talking about how they want to go in that direction more so. And also just the lack of knowledge, even in the trailers, they've been revealing stuff slowly as it's come about, but nothing to really give away the story. And I feel like that's the biggest part right now is it's shown that Banner and Hulk are in it, Punisher's in it, so on and so forth, but even with that, we don't really know what's happening. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the biggest part that people are really excited for so far.
Yeah, and definitely the biggest question mark in the marketing is everybody knows Sadie Sink is in it, but any small glimpse and stuff you catch of her, she's in a big coat that's just kind of dull colors, and they kind of are just slightly hinting that a few shots of what's going on in the movie is her doing. But it definitely feels like while you're watching it, they're very much just leaving a little grain of salt. And I think that this movie is going to be that once you're sitting in the theater, it's not going to be anything necessarily like what you're expecting it to be. And, as with any big franchise superhero movie, that's what the stars are saying about it, where it's oh yeah, it's something we've never done before. It's going to be a completely different story. But when we're watching the trailers of this, you just catch a few glimpses of some smaller Spider-Man villains, and the biggest one to show up so far is Scorpion, and they already, in the clips and trailers they've shown, it doesn't even seem like they're trying to pretend he's the main bad guy. So it'll be very interesting to see all the elements that they have built up for that, and I think this is the only movie leading up to Avengers Doomsday at this point too.
Yes.
So, yeah, it'll be a worthwhile venture to see what's going on with Spider-Man.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting too, and we don't have to stay on this one for too long, but I do think it is interesting that they're putting in, all these different villains and stuff. And I feel like that's what a lot of people talk about with it, is they think it's going to be a lot of him doing Spider-Man stuff and watching him be Spider-Man, do all this, do all that. That's not necessarily part of the main story. Him going out one night and just, randomly fighting Scorpion, or him going out a different day and randomly just fighting Tarantula because they're doing something. Yep. Stuff like that, where it's kind of just showing him be Spider-Man. And I think the other part of that is that they're going to show that it's kind of separate how his life is now, because he's trying to navigate the stuff with Ned and MJ after he finds him again and all that. I think it's going to be kind of interesting to see he's doing all this Spider-Man stuff and also kind of like losing himself a little bit. It seems like in a little bit of a depressive state. It seems from the trailer.
And the last thing I'll say about it too is it seems like, without knowing the context of so much of what we're shown, if you take a step back and look at it, there's so much stuff that they've shown you that you don't know like where it's going or how it connects. So you have like Peter Parker being on his own, nobody remembering who he is. He's having some weird spider formation stuff. He's trying to like keep tabs on Ned and MJ, who seem like they're going to get roped back into this. There's Punisher. There's Bruce Banner and the Hulk are back. There's who everybody thinks is Jean Grey, is Sadie Sink, and then there's all these other little villains. There's Scorpion. There's the Hand.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? There's so much, and the more you think about it, the more you're like, oh my god, yeah, there is actually that much stuff laid out. Yeah. And I feel like just a few small answers to a question will fill in how all of that is fitting together. Mm-hmm. So that definitely is. I honestly, right now, I'm looking forward to that more than Avengers Doomsday. But since we're on the topic of Marvel right now, at the end of the year is when the long-awaited Avengers Doomsday, where we're still waiting on the first official trailer for it. We've gotten like the snippets of, like Steve Rogers and Thor, and like the Fantastic Four and Shuri and stuff like that. But I feel like this movie, it's doing a good job of like building hype behind the scenes, because there's not been a lot of outright press for it, but I feel like they are leaving little trickling rumors of, oh, this person's gonna be in it, this person's gonna be in it, the X-Men are gonna be a big thing, Doom's gonna kill so and so, and it's honestly doing a good job of making me not as nervous about it, given that this is the first time we'll see Doom, and a lot of these characters who just showed up or like were elevated for a long time. Yeah,
and I agree. I think like how they done it with like the casting announcement and stuff was excellent. And then just showing like the teasers here and there to kind of give you like a little glimpse of what's going on. I am still slightly worried just because I'm like, dude, this is the Doom introduction. There are so many characters, even though they're already established characters, they're like coming into this and like need to fit in this somehow. And on top of all that, it seems that there's going to be a big play with the X-Men and like getting brought into all this. And I'm like, well, that's going to take like a lot of time to like figure that all out. And like, I mean, I feel like it's going to have to be either a really long movie or some of what happens in this will have to trickle down into Secret Wars. Because if not, it might just be a lot. It might just get rushed. But I hope it doesn't. Because a lot of people thought that about like Infinity War and Endgame as well. And then they turned out fantastic. So hopefully we kind of have the same thing rolling with that in Doomsday. But we'll see.
Yeah. And another thing about this movie is it kind of has to take a definitive stance on what the deal is with the multiverse stuff, because every project that comes out that deals with the multiverse seems to give like its own little spin on how it's affecting what's going on in the context of their own movies. But this is like the culmination of all that stuff is coming down to Secret Wars and to Doomsday. And so with this, we've had like the Spider-Man explanation twice now with like the original No Way Home thing where it's like, oh, everybody knows Peter Parker and now all these people are coming. Toby and Andrew are in it, and they're expected to be in this movie as well, or at least Secret Wars. And then there's like, the whole animated Spider-Man movie, spider web across the universe kind of explanation. There's the Loki explanation of things, and then there's the Captain Marvel weird body jumping stuff that goes on. So there's
as well as the Doctor Strange stuff
and the Doctor Strange stuff. Yeah. So there's so much stuff to like wrangle into one explanation. And the weirdest part about that to me is so many of the main characters that are going to be in this movie have not directly dealt with the multiverse in such a way like that. Like the Thunderbolts, Sam Wilson as Captain America, and like the Fantastic Four is not as big of a stretch for it, but I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff to like reel into this. Plus the entire edition of the original X-Men is just gonna be like I don't even know what this is gonna look like. I'm excited, but yeah.
And I mean, yeah, this is supposed to be like the culmination of like everything multiverse that we've learned, because this is supposedly the end of the multiversal saga, and then they'll kind of go back to more of a comic booky, like simpler explanation kind of stuff, which is fine. But I will say, I do think it is kind of funny that at this point now, with all like the examples that we just gave, there's also like the Shang-Chi reasoning and stuff too that they had. You know, there's just so many different ones that have come about now that it's like, dude, basically if you have any sort of cosmic power or any sort of like connection to like the cosmic power at all, you can basically just go to a different universe or reality. Like at this point, it's very easy in the Marvel universe to open up a new reality.
If you know somebody, like if anybody's friends with Doctor Strange or probably the Fantastic Four after this, they can just be like, oh yeah, here we go, portal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for it, and I'm not as nervous as I once was about it, because I am expecting probably a 3.5 hour movie full of explanations, and if there's ever a place to like give you a mind-numbing amount of story and explanation of stuff, it's an Avengers movie. So I'm not too nervous about it. I just think it will be, walking out of the theater after seeing Avengers Doomsday will be like, I need a couple days to absorb everything that I just watched.
Oh, real quick, last thing about this that I have to say. I think this too, with it being the end of the multiverse stuff, might get a little messy just solely based on the fact that I think this is going to be bring every character that you want to bring to this universe that we haven't met yet, and then give them a reason why they're stuck here, and that's why everybody's here.
Yep.
And I think that's what it's going to end up being, which if they do it well, it doesn't matter, because I want all of them here too. I want all of the characters, but
and it'll be great to see so many like long in the running iterations of these characters meet each other, because like the X-Men stuff has such a huge fan base, and it's going to be all those original actors and stuff of these characters meeting like whoever, like name any rumored cast member, it's probably they'll have some sort of interaction, whether it's hostile or friendly, but it'll be hopefully very explaining of everything going on. We'll jump out of superhero stuff real quick, and there's one movie that I think has caught our eye in terms of just like leaving a few question marks for us, and I think a lot of people are wondering like, what is this movie gonna be? And that is The End of Oak Street. And I haven't looked into this movie that much, apart from that, like, oh, they've got a pretty rock solid couple cast members up front, and it looks like this whole neighborhood just ends up in some prehistoric land or something. But the big question mark around this movie is that if you're familiar with the Cloverfield movies, you know that they have a reputation of just seeing a movie that's in development and then plucking it and saying, we're going to turn this into the next installment of our story. So a lot of people seem convinced that this movie will be the next Cloverfield movie. And you and I have talked a little bit about it, but what do you think that this movie will be?
So just based off premise and cast alone, whether it is or isn't doesn't really matter to me, because I think I'm going to enjoy it either way, even though I know nothing about it. It could be terrible. I have no idea. But it was enough to kind of pique my interest. If it is a Cloverfield movie, because we have watched all the Cloverfield movies, and they're, for the most part, decent. I feel like they've kind of gotten worse over time. The last one was a little bit of a stretch. It's like, how did we even get to this? But it doesn't matter. If it is Cloverfield, I want it to be unique in the way that's like, oh yeah, like this is Cloverfield and this is how it fits. But it's, it's its own thing. Like, you can tell, like, but not in the way that they don't with the last one. The last one I thought, sorry, this is a little bit of a rant, whatever. The last one was unique in premise. I thought it was cool. They took the idea, or they took, what was already in production that seemed pretty cool, and it would have been cool to take that and make it into a good Cloverfield movie. Yeah. They just didn't. So they made it a little too weird and out there. But anyway, as long as they kind of keep it grounded, at least in terms of sci-fi Cloverfield stuff, more grounded than the last one, I think it'll be like solid if it is a Cloverfield movie.
Yeah, and I think what's making people jump at this being a Cloverfield movie is that if you've seen the most recent one, which I don't even know when that came out, but it does deal with just like, I guess the right word would be like space displacement, and like time, like weird time space-time things going on, and that doesn't offer a lot of evidence to this being the same thing, because it could just be somebody was like, oh, this would be a neat movie, is this neighborhood ends up in prehistoric times, or like this prehistoric world or whatever, which in itself sounds cool. It doesn't have to be a Cloverfield movie to be worthwhile. I just think I don't know where the gigantic backing of this being a Cloverfield movie has come from, unless I've missed something, and again I haven't like looked into it a whole ton, but I think for the most part, in seeing the trailer for this movie, it looks like it's taking itself fairly seriously.
Yeah.
Too. Like, it's not like, oh my gosh, we're in prehistoric, like, honey, get the shotgun, we'll hold up and, like, get Fred, our kooky neighbor, to, like, come in and...
Yeah.
But I think, I think it'll be an interesting movie.
Yeah, and I think this... Okay. I'm not hating on this movie, because I love it. It's awesome, even though a lot of people hate on it. But this piqued my interest in the same way that Death of a Unicorn did. Just where, like, good cast, seems fairly interesting, not really anything crazy. Like, you don't really know anything about it. Like, this feels, the way, when I saw the trailer, this feels, like, similar to me. Or, also, I guess, compared to another movie that I did not like, and it kind of sucks, but, like, Watchers, before Watchers came out, kind of like that same feeling. Like, it's not like, like I'm sold on it. Like, I don't really know anything about it. I didn't look too far into it, but seems pretty, face value, it seems pretty decent. That's kind of how I feel about this.
That's weird that you mentioned Death of a Unicorn there, because when I watched this trailer for this movie, that's the vibe I'm getting of it, even though Death of a Unicorn was very much like, it's not supposed to be like that serious. Like, it's supposed to be a little goofy. But, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what that's going to be. But I think that movie's doing a good job of getting people's attention, that when it comes out, a lot of people will go see it.
Yeah, I think so.
So that's exciting. The next thing I want to jump over to here is another big franchise, and I don't think we've ever actually talked about this franchise on here, which is Sunrise on the Reaping is coming out in, I think, October, maybe November, more towards the end of the year. But I think that this movie looks good, and I think this movie is like a tell on kind of what the Hunger Games is going to look like from now on, where it's just going to be, oh, I have another idea for a character to pursue, or like another Hunger Games that we should tell a story about. Let's make another Hunger Games movie. And honestly, there's not really anything wrong with that, because it's kind of just cool of like, oh yeah, let's get these people, make a little interesting story, and then throw them in and let them kill each other. And I think that this one looks pretty good. I feel like they released the trailer and then it kind of got quiet.
Yeah.
But I think it'll ramp back up when it's coming out.
I think this movie looks very solid. I'm excited for it. Definitely going to go see it when it comes out. I'm not as huge into like the lore and books as like a lot of people in the fandom are. And I've seen where people have had complaints already from just like the trailers and stuff, who are more into like the fandom and the books and stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Just as somebody who's, read the first few books and like all of the movies, because more of a movie fan, obviously, but like as someone who likes all the movies, to me, this one looks pretty good, and I'm interested in the story that's going to tell. So, I mean, for me, it's fine. But for people who know more about it, maybe not. I don't know. I've seen some people already being like, no, this is incorrect.
Yeah, and I think, too, I know that I've heard commentary about this movie about how at least the book version is very like tragic. Like it's a very tragic story about Haymitch and like adds a lot to his character, which I think is interesting, and it'll be cool to see the another quarter quell thing where they're doing something like different with the games. So yeah, I think it'll just be, I feel like a good Hunger Games story movie. Like, and that's kind of the way I felt about oh gosh, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Like, if it's just centered around Hunger Games, usually that hasn't historically been a letdown franchise to watch a movie of. You know,
I will say, and then we can just get past this. This is just my little personal beef. When the movies get more into the lore of like the actual world itself, I feel like it gets a little boring because I'm like, I feel like a big part of this is like, I know it needs to happen.
Yeah.
But in some of the later movies, they'd gotten more into like the lore of what's going on and stuff like that. I'm like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like it's more of like a government military drama kind of stuff, and I feel like a lot of people are pretty keyed in on like the games themselves. And that's kind of how I feel.
That's like the draw. That's like the main event.
Yeah,
and the rest is kind of just like context.
Yeah,
and, drama,
world building,
which is okay.
Yeah,
and you can't just make like, okay, we're starting and the games begin in the first like 2 minutes of the movie. I mean, you could.
Yeah, there's that balance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But any of them with like, you take one of the known characters or a new character or whatever, make them interesting, and then throw them into games of their own. That's when it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'll definitely be worthwhile to go see that in theaters because if nothing else, it'll be a cool Hunger Games battle. I got a few more that we'll touch on. I'll say my last one that I don't think you've watched either of the Dune movies yet, but Dune Part 3 comes out this year, and I won't stay on it too much, but I think one that after watching 1 and 2, I had to watch 1 twice before I had any sort of appreciation for it. And I haven't read any of the books of that either, but I think it's a pretty good story. It's kind of like the twist on The Chosen One, except it goes wrong. So I'm kind of curious to see how it'll wrap up in a third movie that looks to be much more like fast-paced action, which is kind of how the second one was. They leaned a lot heavier into like the action of the world. But I think that this will just be... I think it'll be interesting just for the spectacle, and hopefully the story stays consistent with it. Because the second one, when they go full out on the fight scenes, did a great job of paying off like your patience with being a little confused. And this is, again, I'm saying this like not reading the books, and it throws a lot at you all at once. So if nothing else, I think it'll be a great like spectacle to go see.
I will say this. So earlier, I've watched the first one when it first came out, and I thought it was boring, so I didn't watch the second one. But then you told me that the second one makes the first one better, so I could go through it again. So I think I will go through it again and watch both of them, and then try to get into it enough to see the third one when it comes out. Because I know visually they're stunning, which is kind of that was the only thing that drawn me to the first one, but I didn't like the story enough to watch the second one. So that was
super atmospheric.
Yeah. So that was kind of my beef with it. But I'm gonna rewatch the first one and the second one, and then hopefully that gets me going on it. Maybe I'll lock in. Just never.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll jump back real quick into superhero territory because this is one we've talked about before, and now is the next installment of the DC universe. That's Clayface, and we've now had our first look at Clayface, and this is a point that I think I saw somebody make on TikTok, and I was like, that's a good point. Right now, horror movies are kind of like killing it. Especially like with Backrooms and Obsession just coming out, and I'm pretty sure that I saw that Clayface has only like a $40 million budget, which for a superhero movie is very small. And so I think the interesting draw of this is that it's going to be a rated R horror movie, and that makes it automatically alienating part of the audience that it's trying to appeal to. But I also think that has an opening as promoting itself as a horror movie to draw horror movie fans into DC.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is just like an interesting movie, and the more that we're following it and have seen glimpses of the footage now, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a pretty gnarly movie.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say I'm like super excited for it, but I have a lot of interest in what is this going to be like, you know?
Yeah, what I think too, like people have kind of wanted that for a long time, like the superhero horror kind of thing, and like on the big screen, like when before Multiverse of Madness came out, that's what everybody thought it was gonna be, and everybody was really excited for it.
Yeah.
And then it came out, and there was like aspects of it being kind of weird, but it was just kind of like, ugh, like you didn't do this very well. You know what I mean? Like, but I think if they do it well, like this is kind of like a genre that people have been asking, like. Yeah, like, and people have brought up different stuff too, like a Batman horror movie from like the villain's POV and stuff like that.
Which would be real cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
But just like stuff like that, like the people have asked for it. There's never been one done. Like they've never leaned into it all the way, and hopefully this does.
And I think them doing it with a character like Clayface too is making more sense to me of them going straight horror with it, because it's like, it's a character that's gained enough popularity over time where people aren't going to be like shy about going to see it. But I also think it's not a big enough character where if it doesn't pan out as well as they would like it to, that it's going to tarnish any shot of that in the future.
Yeah,
because
agreed.
This is a character, like, if you know anything about the backstory of, and from what I've come to learn, there's a bunch of different iterations of what Clayface is like. This is kind of like an amalgamation of them. I think the direction that they're going with it so far looks pretty decent. It's just very intriguing to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's one more that I know we're both excited about that we'll talk about, which is Robert Eggers' next movie, Werewolf. And what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, well, it's kind of hard because we've talked about a lot of great movies that are coming out. Obviously, I'm anticipating Spider-Man quite a bit, and Doomsday, because, huge Marvel guys over here. But Werewolf might be my most anticipated movie of the year. I'm not even going to lie. Just because everything that Robert Eggers puts out, even if I can find my gripes with it, like, anytime I think back about the movie itself, I'm like, dude, so much detail, so much, like, story is good. Like, every single one of his movies, I'm like, that's just a good movie. Like, and honestly, we talked about him quite a bit, but I mean, one of my favorite directors, I feel like, at this point, for sure. Like, fantastic. Anytime I hear anything about him working on another project or anything, I'm like, dude, immediately, like, I'm tuned in. I'm keyed into it, dude.
Yep. And so I really feel like his last movie, Nosferatu, was his stepping off point into people being like, oh, Robert Eggers.
Yeah.
Because he was known before that for, like, Lighthouse and Witch and The Northman. And I feel like The Northman was kind of also a step up in terms of when that came out, a lot of people were like, oh, this movie looks interesting. But at that time, I don't think a lot of people were like, it's Robert Eggers, I should go see it. And then Nosferatu came out, and people were like, this Robert Eggers guy, I didn't know he did these movies, but that adds up. And now it's Werewolf is coming out, and it's a Robert Eggers movie. So I think it's cool that he's starting to develop that kind of name brand for himself. And we recently got our first look at the trailer for it, and it looks very, like, raw horror. And it's fitting into that kind of... we've talked about it a little bit, like a little Old English kind of setting. So, and he's good at building the world to fit into that and to, like, faithfully pull that off. So I think that this will be probably a very defining horror movie of 2026.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I saw just one little quick bit before we go. I saw a comment on the trailer when it first came out, and they put it well, I will say. They said that this isn't even a horror movie at this point. This is in a category of its own. This is a terror movie. And I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what it's actually going to be like, but, I mean, if I'm assuming he'll do it well, and if it looks, as crazy as it seems from the trailer. It'll probably be kind of gnarly.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing too, is it's a very different style of horror. Like, it's not jump scare. Well, I'm sure they're not rolling out jump scares, but it doesn't rely on like the jump scares and then being like, oh my gosh, it's like a possessed dead body or whatnot. Like, it lets you sit in just these like horrific situations. And that's what I'm very interested in this movie about, is I don't think of werewolves as necessarily like really scary, but I feel like this one will make them scary as sort of a force of nature of that's terrifying if you had to fight or face that.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I think that probably is in my top 3 of most anticipated for the rest of the year as well. That might be my number 1 too, just because so different from so much of the other stuff coming out. But yeah, I think that does it for our upcoming 2026 movie releases. So far, 2026 has been a good year for movie releases. A lot of them keep coming out very close to each other, so it's kind of hard to keep up. But yeah, there's a lot to look forward to. So this has been the My Opinion Podcast. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.